Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark, presented by ComEd. Make sure you're hitting up comed.com/clean for all your electric needs, especially if you're switching your vehicles over to electric. CHGO Bears After Dark is always electric. We always keep the lights on here late at night, talking some Bears football. Bears After Dark only one more week next week where we don't have practices to talk about. We don't have to scratch and claw to, come up with some things that we want to, make things interesting for our viewers, of course. It's kind of the dark days right now in Bears conversation, other than waiting on Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams to ink their rookie contracts. But I think nobody's really overly concerned of that, not happening. So we should be good in that regard. So, welcome back, Corey. How are we feeling tonight?
Doing good, man. Just was in Jersey visiting the family last week, so hanging out there, a lot of golfing, hanging out with family, eating some good food. So, it was a good time.
Swinging good? You swinging the sticks good?
Yeah, should have broke 80 on Friday. For the last putt, I pulled the Rory. I need to sink that putt to have a 79, and I finished with an 80.
Damn.
And it's not bad because on the front, I could barely hit the ball like off the tee. Like I was struggling to get off the tee, and my short game saved me. I had a 45, and if you saw the way I hit it, you should have thought I'd been in the 50s. Just luckily chipping and putting saved me. On the back went one under.
Yeah, well, John Daly always says it's about 150 and in. That's what defines the good golfers. So, yeah, well, we'll keep working on it. Maybe one day you'll get on my level, Corey.
Oh,
yeah.
I
mean, you might have the biceps, but my trajectory in my golf game is this media stuff is great, and I'm on a good, climb to the top, but my golf game every month gets better and better. And if I keep this pace for 5 years, I might be able to go pro. We'll see.
You're not beating Hogue, so.
Yeah, I will. I promise I will beat Hogue.
But I'll throw money on it right now. Clip it, whatever. I got Adam Hogue straight up, no mulligans, no breakfast balls, no brunch balls, no dinner balls. Straight up, play it as it lies.
Damn.
Hogue's got you.
I thought you had my back. All right, I guess not. You got Hogue's back. Fine. All right, fine. I don't need nobody, Corey. But that's all good. I'm happy to prove you wrong. Happy to take your money, take Hogue's money, take Carm's money, clean house. So hanging out here, we got Steven in the background producing here tonight, giving me a little assist. We appreciate you. We're going to start off. We talked the last time you were on, we talked about your top 5 teammates of all time. And a lot of Bears fans really enjoyed some of those stories, things we haven't heard before behind the scenes, what it was like in the locker room, back to your glory days and some of the best Bears to ever, put on the Bears jersey for this franchise you played alongside, and so I just thought, hey, let's keep that theme going as we finish up the summer before we get to training camp and talk about your top 5 games of all time that you played in as a Chicago Bear. So I'll let you kick things off. We're going to start from 5 and work our way down to your favorite game. And we got some stats for each one. So why don't we let her rip?
Yeah, so the first one has to be the playoff game against Seattle. The divisional playoff game that got us into the NFC Championship. So played Seattle. Seattle comes Soldier Field. It's snowing that day. I remember they didn't want to be there. That was the game with a tight end, John Carlson. I don't know if you remember that. Went up the sideline. And I'm talking about got smoked. Hit his head on the ground and was out cold. Felt bad for him in that situation. So they had Marshawn Lynch. Hasselbeck was the quarterback. Leon Washington was the returner, I believe, at the time. So they had a lot of pieces there. But, I felt great about that game, our defensive game plan, especially my first year going into the NFC Championship, right? We had a bye week 1. Then go to Seattle, beat them pretty convincingly. I know the score looks a lot tighter than it was, but I thought we had them for most of the game. And then first year going into the NFC Championship game against the Packers, one more game to get in the Super Bowl. So that was awesome to beat them in my first playoff win at Soldier Field. Was rocking. part of the rotation. It's
there,
good to see
Corey.
out there.
I was in the stands with my good friend Jason Pearson. We were, it was great. The snow started coming down. Greg Olsen right up the seam for a touchdown on like the first play of the game, essentially.
Yep.
Right out the gate. Cutler, as you see, if you're listening here on the podcast and you're not watching on YouTube, we got a graphic up. They won 30. Bears won 35-24. Cutler goes 15-28 for 274 yards, 4 touchdowns total, 2 rushing. Matt Forte, 25 carries, 134 total yards, and a touchdown. And then Greg Olsen with his touchdown, along with 3 catches and 113 yards. Briggs with 7 tackles, solo tackles. 6 solo tackles. Urlacher was 7. Tommie Harris with a 1.5 sacks. Izzy Adonijah with a 0.5 sack. The Tommie Harris aspect of that really surprised me. I don't know why, but I completely forgot that he was like still. It just from his injury early on, it completely crossed my memory that he was still contributing like that when the Bears were on their playoff run with you.
Yeah, so he was a starter that year. That was before Henry Melton really came in his own. That next year, 2011, that's when Henry Melton was that situational pass rusher, rotational 3 technique. But Tommie Harris was crucial in that role. I would say that like all the skills were there, right? You saw from the injury sometimes, depending on the week or day, was depending on how well he went. But you saw it when he was healthy. It was unbelievable to see him. The quickness off the ball. We called that the jab ole move, where he gets the guard up the field and then makes that hump and arm over move that was deadly. When he was one of the best at that, and especially I remember my first couple of years of college, seeing him. Actually, it was high school, and then my first year at Northwestern, second year, third year, was unbelievable. I mean, the quickness when he was in his prime. If he never got injured, I mean, would be one of the greats. I think he had all the talent. It was just injuries that cut his career short. Was such a great guy, too. Unbelievably funny. A lot of people don't know that about him. Always had a lip in his mouth. Always had that big dip in his mouth no matter what. I've probably seen it in interviews, in the meeting room. He was one of those guys that always had a dip in his mouth, kind of like Adrian Peterson. I think they're both from like the same area, Texas, big Southern thing. But Tommie Harris, great dude. Unfortunately, has suffered some serious losses in his life with his wife and his mother. Just a great dude, and reached out to him when that happened. And I know he's kind of like a pastor now and doing a lot of good stuff for the community. And it's good to see him. He's a great father, a great person, and good to see him doing well.
He slimmed up too, from his playing days as well. Obviously he's been through a lot. But some of the stuff I've seen, he looks slim, looks like he's, in a better place now. And he found religion and everything else. The things I remember about Tommie, you talk about would have been one of the greats before he got hurt. He had a game against the Vikings where he laid a guy out across the middle. He dropped back in coverage. They throw it across the middle, and Tommie Harris completely obliterated this slot receiver coming across. I'll never forget that. And when the way he got up and just like pumped his fist, I was like, this dude is a monster. And then the other thing I'll always remember about Tommie Harris is he was one of the guys at Bourbonnais that would be the last player off the field, talking to every single fan, taking a picture with every single fan, signing autographs. And, I never had over expectations for any player. I understand you guys had a job to do, so you were always just grateful or gracious. Fans were always grateful just for, whatever you guys could manage, got to go back to the ice tub, got to go back to the film room, do your job. But Tommie seemed time and again to be the last one off the field, to the point where the staff for the Bears would have to come out and pull him off. All right, man, we know you love to show love, but we got to get back and stuff. So that was something I always, made a note with Tommie, how much he took care of the fans. So definitely shout out to him. And it was interesting to see that stat line. And I'm like, oh yeah, Tommie was still a big contributor at that point. And you kind of lose track of the eras, in the Lovie Smith era of who the personnel was for each game. So let's go on to the next game. Number 4 on your list. First one, number 5 was Bears Seahawks. That is actually the last time the Bears won a playoff game too, by the way. So we're waiting on the next one, Corey. But your number 4 game on your list in your career.
2012 game against Jacksonville when Blaine Gabbert was the quarterback. I mean, we absolutely got after him. That game was unbelievable. I should have had 2 sacks, but Henry Melton jumped on somebody the last second and tried to take half my sack. But anywho, that game we were getting after Blaine Gabbert. It was unbelievable to see that. This is when we went on that streak. I don't know if you remember the 7-1 start.
Yep.
That was one of those games where everyone's like, man, this defense is for real. Just continuing that momentum. And I believe the Dallas game was like the next week.
There was the game. It was the game right before that game.
Before that game, yeah.
Yeah, it was Dallas and then Jacksonville back to back. And Peanut, Tillman, and Briggs had interceptions, pick sixes in back-to-back games.
And then Major Wright had a pick in that Dallas game as well. But that was when we were really starting that streak defensively, when we were for real. Everybody had their eyes out. I remember getting texts from different guys around the league like, man, y'all boys are playing defense. And it was fun to see because when you look at it, like just our stat line was unbelievable. I mean, we let up 3 points in that game, under 300 yards, the turnovers, the sacks, the TFLs. It was all there, right? We were able to stop the run. The rushing cover was working there. It was so fun playing in that 2012 defense. And you just thought, like, if we could have just matched up a little bit with the offense, with the way we were playing defense, I really thought the way we started out that year 7-1, I said, we are going to win the Super Bowl. And I believe everybody on the defensive side of the ball thought that because we had a championship style caliber defense. It was so fun to play.
Yeah,
but I remember.
I
was just say real quick. The thing I remember about that Jacksonville game was how scared Blaine Gabbert seemed in that game. Every time we came around him, he's, like he literally once we hit him a couple times, every time he just went down. I think you get in somebody's head, and especially a young guy like him, right? They're trying to groom and mold him. He was the first overall pick for them the year before, and literally like the offensive line was shaky. They couldn't hold up, and I think that does a lot for a quarterback, right? If they don't have any protection or any time, they don't have the right scheme and the piece to the puzzle, it's really hard for somebody to grow and develop. And I think that's why you probably saw Blaine Gabbert. I believe he was talented and he had some talent there, but it's all about the situation you were in. And it's unfortunate sometimes when you see these guys, like, they have no hope. Like, I look at Derek Carr when he first came in the league. The most sacked guy for his first 2 years back when he was on the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
Or David Carr, sorry. David, right? The older brother.
Yes.
Right?
David Carr, yes.
David Carr. And I think he was so talented, but never really got a chance to develop. And that's what I kind of felt with Blaine Gabbert. Like, he never got a chance. Who knows what he could have been, right? He's still playing. He's still, a quality backup in the league and go in there and, do what he needs to do. But I think they had high hopes for him, and it's unfortunate sometimes how that shakes out in the league.
Yeah, well, he got shook out that day for sure. And yeah, you guys were cooking. Final score was 41-3, 38 unanswered points. Like I said before, Briggs and Peanut with pick sixes, and that was in back-to-back weeks. We'll get into more of that here in a minute. 501 yards of total offense. Cutler, 23 of 39, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns. Matt Forte, 22 carries for 127 yards. Brandon Marshall with 12 catches for 144 yards and a touchdown. And then yours truly, Corey Wootton, a 1.5 sacks and 3 quarterback hits on the day. The thing that I remember most about that game, Corey, was Lance Briggs made a bet with Carmen DeFalco on ESPN 1000 that, hey, we're going to start like 5-0 or something, or 4-1 or 5-0. And he was like, no, you're not. And he's like, if we do, you have to shave your head. And sure enough, you guys did. And Carmen DeFalco had to shave his head. I'll never forget that. You guys backed it up for sure that year. It was a lot of fun to watch. We're going to get to the other games on Corey's list here in a moment, but want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors here on CHGO Bears After Dark. And we appreciate ComEd They've been, our presenting sponsor here, and want to give them a quick shout out because it's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles. That's something we can all get behind for the health of the planet and the well-being of all of us who share it. The electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we all move with confidence towards an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense. So business owners should go to comed.com/clean to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, and good for all of us. Go to comed.com/clean and go now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come. Also want to give a quick shout out over here to our guys over at Game Time. Make sure you're using the code CHGO for $20 off. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. So like I said, flash deals, zone deals, last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy MLB tickets for any kind of event in your area. Views from all your seats in the venue. You can see exactly what your vantage point's going to be. Lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They take care of you, the fans, all-in pricing. The lowest price guaranteed. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And they have a Game Time ticket coverage, which purchase is covered. Every purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying the MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. So we're getting into this here a little more, getting into your third favorite game of all time, Mr. Corey Wootton. You are muted.
You just muted me. Why did you mute
That
me?
was, I didn't do that. You can blame me, and then
that was me. That was me.
Okay.
You can blame me.
Come on,
I blame Steven.
I was getting a little feedback. Yeah.
That's fine.
You wanted to make it real interesting. So the number 3 game had to be the Tennessee game 2012, right? Great game as well. You see the stats right there, 51-20, the Urlacher pick 6, Peanut, 4 forced fumbles. Nashville runs out of light beer? Wait, what? What about when you're on the shred? What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to eat. But that was an unbelievable game, especially defensively. Like we were on fire. Urlacher was rumbling, stumbling into the end zone. That year he had his knee brace on.
Gliding and sliding a little bit too, the way he maneuvered through some of the tackles.
Exactly. I got a touchdown in that, which you made fun of me. Oh yeah, you let him take you down. Hey, I was going in the end zone regardless, whether he was on top or not, or whether I was on top of him like that. So I was getting in there regardless. So doesn't matter how you get in there, it matters that you got in.
Yep,
I got in.
True. I'll give you your credit.
I had a sack in that game, hit the robot, and it was actually a really fun game. And I just remember another game where the Bears completely took over that stadium, which was unbelievable. And that was a common thing. I don't think people realize, I played for the Vikings, I played for the Lions. And people ask, what team did you love the most? The fan, I said, the Bears by far. It's not even close, right? I think Minnesota has a good fan base. Detroit was okay. Now they're starting to, but there are no fans like the Bears fans. I think people don't realize that when you look around the league, and Bears fans travel the best out of any team out there. Like literally they took over Nashville. Let's go Bears, erupting around the stadium. Like more Bears fans than Titans fans. Unbelievable the impact. And it was so awesome playing in front of almost like a home crowd in an away game, which was unbelievable, right? You make a sack fumble, you make a big play. Usually it doesn't erupt like that, if the opposing team is at Soldier Field, It was so awesome to see, and that's another game that we're like, yeah, we got it. Like we're going to the Super Bowl. Like we were firing on all cylinders, special teams, defense, offense. I really thought, and I think everybody on the team was like, there's nobody stopping us.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, Bears fans always travel well. Every year when the schedule comes out, we're looking for the best games to travel to. But as the team gets better, the more the Bears fans travel. So they already travel well, but then when they are, build that early season momentum, every game on the road starts to become a takeover. And that you can look at the schedule this year. I think we have it here. You can see it. Like if the Bears to get on an early run, they're going to be at the Texans game early on. I can promise you that. But then you got the Colts on the road. That's going to be a Bears takeover. The London game, that's going to be a Bears takeover. Already was in 2019 and in 2012. And if they get to week 8, week 9, where you're playing at Washington, at Arizona, where there's already a lot of Chicago transplants in Arizona, if they're on a run, not only are Bears fans already going to be there, they're going to be there in droves if the Bears have a good record at that point, and they very well might, and then you get to the second half of the season, and, there's just a lot of opportunity there for Bears fans to really flex their muscle and show their support to the team. So I definitely think that that's on the table. And when you talk about that game, once again with the stats, Cutler, 19 of 26, 229 yards, 3 touchdowns. Because there's a theme here once we get to the end of this that I want to talk about. Forte, 12 carries, 148 total yards, 148 total yards and a touchdown. Brandon Marshall, 9 catches, 122 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then, of course, you had your touchdown, fumble recovery, and a sack. But was that an interception? Was that counted as an interception, or
no,
was that
just a block? It's a block kick, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's right, block kick. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't sure if you knocked it before so if you knock it before the kicker kicks it, it's still a block kick. You know what I mean? Like if he hasn't actually been in the act of kicking and you knock it like as he's holding it still, or is that point, is it still a forced fumble? I don't know. Gary can help me out.
Yeah, I think that's just like a forced fumble or it'd be like a tackle for loss if I just tackled him and the ball didn't come out. So I
see.
think that's what it's called. But the moment he makes a kicking motion,
right,
is a block kick at that point.
Okay. Well, nice job getting in there. If you blocked my kick, though, I would not have let you get in the end zone. I'd have taken you down.
Oh, really? Oh,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the old Brags, but the new media Brags, I don't know. Those hands, he doesn't have any calluses anymore. He doesn't have the working man hands. He's got these little. He's like, I lotion like 7 times a day because I try to. Like you are not the same Brags that I used to know, right? Brick juice, the whole bit.
One year and I've changed on you,
This guy drinks lattes right now. Like he goes to Starbucks and says, "Can I get a pinkity drinkity?" And I'm like, "Bro, what?
A pinkity drinkity dinkity?" I know you've seen that.
I don't know, bro. I don't. What's going
on?
Yeah,
I'm definitely getting bougie. You should have seen the place we picked up for when we go to London. Jenny and I are going to go to Paris for 2 nights before, and this bougie ass hotel that we picked out, definitely not in my wheelhouse, but I've changed. Like you said, I've changed.
That's what happens when they pay you the big bucks, man.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. All right, rolling along here. We're whittling down to Corey's top 5 games. We've already gone through 3. Bears Seahawks last playoff win. Bears versus Jaguars, a complete drubbing of Blaine Gabbert and the Bears. And then, of course, the Chicago takeover in Nashville when the Bears took down the Titans, where everything kind of culminated from Peanut Tillman's forced fumbles, Urlacher, pick 6, Hester almost housed one, Wootton gets in the end zone. Bears fans everywhere going crazy, drinking Miller Lite beer. That's what being a Bears fan, that game kind of was a culmination of all those great things that we all love about being Chicago Bears fans and players, of course, and the tradition of this team. So your number 2 game of all time that you played in as a Chicago Bear.
The 2012 season at Jerry's World against the Cowboys. and completely took over that stadium. That was unbelievable, right? Dallas is America's team, they say. I don't know. Are they? I think the Bears are America's team. But we completely took over that stadium at the end of the game. Let's go. It just erupted in that stadium. I remember my parents were at that game, my uncle, and they were like, this is unbelievable how well Bears fans travel. It felt like a home game. That defense was rocking. We just continued that streak. It was so fun because as a kid, believe it or not, I grew up, even though I lived right down the street from Giant Stadium, I grew up a Cowboys fan, right? My grandfather was a Tony Dorsett, Roger Staubach fan from back in the day. My dad followed suit. I followed suit with him, right? Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman days. So loved the Cowboys. And then obviously, get drafted to the Bears and wanted to play there. And it was just unbelievable. I remember the pregame, you're just taking it all in because at the time it was the best stadium in the NFL. Yep. Just how they constructed everything, the way the audio was. And I remember that MGK song, what was it called? Steve-O. They just played that like crazy. People were just going nuts in pregame. Yep. And it was just such an electric atmosphere. When they did the national anthem and when they called them out of the tunnel, it just got you so hyped. Like the hairs on the back of your neck stood up, and it was awesome. Like, and I remember going against Tyron Smith at the time. That was one of the best left tackles in the game, and it was just such, Jason Witten too, and Tony Romo, how he'd always make that Houdini move where he reverse around and get you. And I should have had 2 sacks in that game. Somebody kept contained, and it was just like I beat Tyron Smith. And I was so mad because if we just kept contained on that side, I would have had Tony Romo twice. But, hey, we won the game, and that's all that matters. But the way we took over that stadium was unbelievable. And Bears fans are the best. I say it all the time. There are no fans like Bear fans.
Hey, I appreciate that. I'm one of them. Everybody but me. Well, hey, thank you very much. I was at the Seahawks playoff game. I was at this Cowboys game. So, 2 of the 4 that you've picked here so far, I attended the game. Thank you very much. So, I played a small little part, and I like to hear how much the Let's Go Bears chants get you guys hyped up. And you're right. The things that I remember about that game, Tony Romo could not stop giving the ball away. 5 interceptions. As we mentioned before, this was the back-to-back games, Cowboys first and Jaguars second, where Lance Briggs and Peter Tillman both had pick sixes in back-to-back games. They had, at that point in the season, more rushing touchdowns than Matt Forte. The defense was churning. Hester had a receiving touchdown. That was when he was starting to really start to get acclimated as a wide receiver. He had a really nice touchdown, one-handed grab in the corner of the end zone right over the star. And then Jay Cutler, again, with the theme. Cutler, 18 of 24, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns. Matt Forte, 13 carries, 52 yards. Quiet day, not as much needed with the amount of interceptions they were getting. Brandon Marshall, 7 catches, 138 yards, and a touchdown. The other thing I remember about that game was Des Bryant returned, punt return for a touchdown that for a minute made the game interesting. I can remember the place just erupting because, the Cowboys fans were looking for something to cheer for. And you're right. With Jerry's World, that was the first game the Bears had played in the new stadium. My good friend Brad Hassey, invited me and my wife down there. We were at the game just to kind of take in the new stadium. And you're right. I mean, just complete electric factory. You pull up to this place. I don't know if you've ever seen the Truman Show, but it literally looked like the Truman Show building, like this otherworldly structure. Just an unbelievable sight. I'll take, the amenities of Soldier Field over something like that. That was impressive, but it's almost like too much for me. So it'll be interesting to see if, the Bears can, I want a new stadium. I want it to be nice. I want the players to have nice amenities, the fans to have nice amenities, even the media to have nice amenities, but I don't want it to take away from the heart and soul of like going to a football game and going to a football stadium. I want there to be some character, and there it's just like they've got an art museum, they've got a car dealership, they've got this Trinitron that is like bigger than the stadium itself. So we'll see what the Bears have to do, but We're going to get to your number one game of all time. Some fans might be able to guess what it is, but first, want to give a quick shout out and let you guys know how you can become a diehard here at CHGO Sports. And, now is as good a time as ever. If you go to allchgo.com/diehard, you can sign up to become a diehard today. You get a free shirt right out the gate. This is the time to sign up with everything we have coming up, the Pike tailgates. You get a free shirt. We get new designs dropping every week. We just got a new shirt design with the Blackhawks. I know there's some Bears ideas in the works still. We have, of course, the franchise collection that dropped during the NFL draft party. So you can get your fresh Bears gear. You get discounts on all shirts after you get the first free one. Just so much to do. We've got the golf event coming up, the Cookout Classic coming up at St. Andrews, presented by Circus Sports, Shady Rays, and Miller Lite. You can get a discount on that. Go golfing, hang out with us. But overall, man, when you get premium written content for members at allchgo.com, 20% off events, members only Discord lounge. We might get to some questions here from some of the diehards from that Discord lounge here today. We do podcasts every single day for every single team that we cover here in Chicago sports, and pre and post game shows coming up. Can't wait. Hall of Fame game right around the corner. So go to allchgo.com/diehard and sign up today. And then quickly, just want to remind you guys, hit up truefantravel.com for our upcoming trips. One to London, October 9th through 15th. Bears taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. See if we can right the wrong from the 2019 game. Going to have a lot of fun events going on there. And then we're going to Arizona as well. So if you go to truefantravel.com, you can reserve your spot, see all the information that it entails, from hotels to events to tickets to the game. All of that's included with True Fan Travel. So make sure you hit them up there. All right. So Corey Wootton, we've gone through 4. Now we get to your number one game of all time as a Chicago Bear. I think I have an idea of what this could be.
You do. Yeah, it's a famous game. Devin Hester broke the record for punt return. We win the NFC North, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have my first sack against arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Brett Favre.
Yep.
And it happens to be his last play in the NFL. So that 2010 game against Minnesota was unreal. That game, who kills Brett Favre?
For those of you that aren't watching on the graphic, it says Bears clinch the division. Woot kills Brett Favre. Hester sets NFL record for kick return touchdowns. So, yeah, it was a notable day.
And I don't know if many people realized the Metrodome, people realize that, right? The Metrodome collapsed.
Like your phone just collapsed.
Exactly, yeah. About to collapse again. But the Metrodome collapsed, right? And we were looking for a place to play. The Minnesota College Gopher Stadium did not have a heated field at the time, right? They just built the stadium. At the time, Big Ten was done like the first week in November, so it didn't get cold enough to justify having a heated field. So this is December, and they were thinking about maybe playing the game in Detroit on a Monday night, and people were voting, all the leadership, different NFL PA members, like, okay, leaders of the team, should we play in this game? Should we not? They were worried about player safety with the ground being frozen. And even before the game, I think they were debating what they were going to do. And they're like, yeah, let's just play. That field was hard as a rock. I mean, literally, I remember falling on it. I was like, damn, it was rock solid. So when I got the sack on him, he hit his head on that ground. That ground was hard as heck. And I don't even remember what happened. Like, it was such a blur. I asked Earl Bennett after the play, right, when I sacked Favre. I go, what happened? He goes, what do you mean what happened? He goes, you sacked Favre. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I was like, I just got off the ball. I beat somebody, and I don't know what happened after that. Like, it was just like a blur. And before that play actually happened, I'm sitting on the sideline, and I was the rotational end for Izzy and Pep. And all of a sudden, I look, and Pep is next to me, and I'm like, what the? And they're like, we're missing one D lineman. And Rob Marinelli's like, what the? Who get in there? He's like, he's chewing me out, calling me every name in the book. He's like, make something happen. And I was like, oh gosh. I was like, I'm never gonna play again. I gotta make something happen. I just remember thinking, just get off the ball, and that happened. And yeah, my playing was on the line right there because I wasted a timeout for the Bears. I'm over there in no man's land, staring in space. And Peppers is right next to me. I'm like, I'm never gonna play again. I gotta make something happen. And then that happens, and yeah, I didn't know what happened. It was a blur. And
That's
then went on punt return, and that punt return wasn't the play he took it to the house. It was a little bit later, but I just remember everybody on the sideline was going nuts, and I was like, I don't know what happened. I know I was on top of a bar, but it was all a blur.
How about it? I mean, you almost think it was like fate, because had it not gone down that way, just the way you describe it, you run out there, you're not thinking, you're just reacting because Marinelli's ready to chew you out. You probably got chewed out during the timeout. So now your ears are up, ready to go. And had that not happened, you might not have gotten one of the most recognizable defensive plays in Chicago Bears history, Corey.
That is true. I mean, Bears fans do love that play because Brett Favre terrorized the Bears for years. Really did. And I remember watching as a kid and, in college, my first couple of years. And great player. I mean, it's crazy how long he played when you think about it. And he played in a time where it wasn't like how it was towards the end of Tom Brady's career where they protected the quarterback. I mean, they went head first at you. I mean, when he played for Minnesota, that was when the Saints went after him in that game when they were doing the Bounty Gate. So he played in an era where he didn't get protected very well. So it's unbelievable that he is still standing, still there. It seems like he's, all there mentally because I know he's taken some hits over the years. I mean, most of those old school players. I mean, Jim McMahon even, right? He's had some issues, and I think he's coming back from all that, and he seems like he's in a good place now. But it's kind of scary when you think about it because back in the day, these guys had no regard for their body. Right. And I don't think they understand the consequences of what they were doing. Now people understand that, and they have better protocols. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still football, right? Football happens, you take hits. But I think, people argue back and forth all day. It's getting soft, it's getting this. But when you see guys, like even guys I played with, and I don't want to name any names, but there's guys that are struggling now that are not even 40 years old that have had a lot of issues because of some of the brain trauma and head trauma. And, as a young player, you're trying to advance your career. You're trying to do everything you can to stay on the field and prove yourself in the league. So I think there is a fine line in there, and I think it's getting better about that. And they're realizing like, hey, let's take it out of the player's hands, right? Because obviously a player is going to want to play through whatever. But I think it's something that for a while a lot of players would just play through. I think they did an NFL film documentary about like concussions or something, and guys were, I don't know, like what exactly is a concussion? Right. That becomes the gray area. Like what really is if you get rocked, but you don't get knocked out? Is that concussion? Is that like? So I think they don't really know. I mean, they know when you get knocked out cold, that's a concussion. But
right. And I think they monitor it much closer now than they did before. So to your point, some of the older players, they probably racked up a bunch of concussions that never actually got tallied because they didn't report it. You get a little dazed and confused. You get off to the sideline and you put the straps back on and get back out there. That's just kind of how it went for a long time. Yeah. So to your point about the player safety and the decision to play on that field, like going out there that night, what was the discussion like in the locker room for you guys or leading up to that week? I mean, to me, it probably would have made a lot more sense to play it in Detroit. It's not, Minnesota's roof implodes at the Superdome. And I understand they want to keep a home game, so going to Detroit probably wouldn't have been ideal because probably it'd have been all Bears fans. So I'm sure that was part of it. And I'm sure obviously the TV, aspect, the TV deal and money probably played a big factor into it too, as well. But what was the conversations for you guys as players leading up to that game?
Yeah, I think most people were kind of like, hey, let's play this game, because I don't know if it was going to be played that Monday. It might have been like the following week. I can't remember exactly how they were trying to organize it. But I know it wasn't like the most ideal situation. So I think from that standpoint, most guys were like, hey, let's just play
Let's
this
just
game.
get it over with.
Exactly. So I think that was kind of the thought of everyone. I think if this happened nowadays, I think it would have probably been different. I think guys would have been like, you know what? Because they're all about safety right now. I think that's the key of this league. Like, let's keep the players safe. And I think back then it just wasn't as much of an emphasis. Like, yeah, some of the helmet-to-helmet stuff, but I think now it's just a different era. But I think everything that was supposed to happen did. And, it's unfortunate Favre got hurt like that. And that was the last play of his career. But
is it though? Is it though, Corey? No, I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding. I
yeah.
get it. I get it.
No,
it's a
no,
players'
people always say,
fraternity.
like,
it's a
people always-
tongue-in-cheek thing.
Yeah, no. I think people like to joke and laugh about it because, like I said, Brett Favre tormented the Bears for years. But realistically, when people ask me about it, I'm like, you never want to see anyone get hurt, right? It was an awesome experience that I got my first sack against a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest, of course. But yeah, like you feel bad, like the fact that he got knocked out cold, and it wasn't his first time doing that. You just had to think like how many different times had that happened to him over the years.
Yep.
And you got to think like, man. And then you start hearing you seeing the movie Will Smith and all that, and you're like, dang, that's real right there. So it's an unfortunate thing, but you never wish anybody to get hurt. But at the end of the day, it is football. Football is a violent game, and things happen. Like guys know what they're getting into. Nowadays, like back then, maybe not as much, but nowadays, guys know what they're getting into.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, some of the stats on that game, Bears win 40-14. Hester returning that kick, like to your point about the frozen field, I think that played a big factor because I think the coverage team for the punt unit for Minnesota hard to get their footing as Hester, kind of skirted by all of them down the sideline to break the kickoff return record. That was a pretty cool moment. And then Cutler going 14-24, 194 yards, 3 touchdowns. Matt Forte, 17 carries for 92 yards. And Johnny Knox with 2 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. Looking back on these games, Corey, and looking at the stat sheets, and as I was going through like kind of the game recaps and remembering watching those games with my friends or being at those games in the stands, you forget a little bit. It just reminds you just how talented Jay Cutler, Matt Forte, Brandon Marshall were, because you just kept seeing them at the top of the stat sheet with big numbers. And as flawed as Jay Cutler was, like he wasn't a perfect quarterback. He made his fair share of mistakes, but he could sling it, man. And he always posted he'd get his touchdowns. He'd get his yards one way or another. He might throw a pick, might fumble the ball here and there, but he was still going to move the chains. He still was going to make plays. And Brandon Marshall, going through some of these different stat sheets, I'm like, good Lord, this guy was an absolute monster game after game after game. What I want to ask you, Corey, is just looking at that and the cohesion that he and Jay Cutler had, could Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze have that kind of chemistry and become those types of players, or maybe even slightly better in terms of the quarterback? Who knows? But, both those guys set a pretty high bar as far as talent on this team. Cutler came the closest ever to getting to 44,000 yards. Brandon Marshall was one of the most elite wide receivers this franchise has ever seen. Can Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams become that kind of connection here in Chicago?
It's definitely possible. I think time will tell and how they get on the same page. I think the one thing about Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler, Brandon Marshall was the number 1 receiver, right? DJ Moore is going to be the number 1 receiver. He's going to be the main target. We also got Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. Like, I don't know who's going to be 2 and 3. Who Caleb Williams is going to go more to, but I think DJ Moore is the for sure one.
Yep.
I think Rome Odunze could be that one day, depending on what direction they go with DJ Moore, how long he stays on the team. They can eventually get that, but I think the one thing is Rome Odunze has all the talent, right? He can high point a ball, he can get open, he can run, he can catch. There's nothing that he can't do. And I think it's great that he gets to learn behind two pros, like two all-pro pros, like DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, guys that have been playing at a high level for a while. And I think whenever you play with players of that caliber, it helps your game and it elevates your game. So that's what I'm looking forward to with Rome Odunze. It would be great if year one, him and Caleb had that type of chemistry, right? And I hope it does blossom into that. But I think the one thing this year with all the weapons, I think they're going to share the wealth. And then you look at the tight end room as well with Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, and then you look in the backfield as well, especially what Swift can do catching the ball out of the backfield. So there's so many different weapons. It's like pick your poison with the Bears.
100%.
So this is the best situation that any Bears team I think has had in franchise history is offensive weapons. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. It's probably one of the best situations in the league right now as far as offensive weapons. I think any quarterback would be foaming at the mouth to be able to play with this cast that they have right now. So I think what Poles did was unbelievable, right? There's some holes that we still need to fill on the defensive line. Get it. But I think this year, and I've mentioned it and you've talked about it and Hogue and company, is all about Caleb Williams and getting him in this offense comfortable because the quarterback has been the big question mark. We look at Jay Cutler's stats. That's probably been our best quarterback in the history of Bears as far as, talent, what he did numbers-wise. I don't think there's been anybody close to him as far as what he did. And hopefully Caleb Williams can do that. And it's going to take some time. I think there's going to be some growing pains and ups and downs. But there's no denying that the situation he's in is going to help accelerate that.
100%. I mean, I look back to those years that you played and Mark Trestman was there and you had Jay Cutler, Matt Forte, in the backfield, Martellus Bennett, tight end, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall, Earl Bennett, Johnny Knox. I think Johnny at that point had gotten injured, but still just a lot of different options. And yeah, of course, DJ is definitely the number one. I guess the reason I look at Brandon and Rome Odunze body type wise, and they're very similar. Sometimes that's kind of my eye test. Like last year when you saw Tyler Scott, you're like, man, he kind of looks like Johnny Knox. He hasn't exactly played like Johnny Knox yet, but nobody's writing off, Tyler Scott by any means yet. But when I look at what Brandon Marshall was doing, and I think about Rome Odunze's potential and the chemistry he's already building with Caleb Williams and the fact that Brandon was such a great 50-50 ball receiver. And that's what Rome Odunze prides himself on. He's a great route runner. He has great hands. He might not be the fastest. He's certainly fast. I think people underestimate just how fast he is, but he is a high point ball receiver. And that's what Brandon Marshall was. So I'm looking at that. I'm like, man, if he can become that for the Bears one day, Caleb Williams and him have that connection the way Jay and Brandon once did. I mean, and then if we're all hoping that Caleb Williams has a higher ceiling than what Jay Cutler brought. And as much as I had some issues with Jay by the end of it, don't care Jay, he certainly was extremely talented and posted some pretty damn good numbers. Yeah. And we're missing those days where, quarterbacks were putting up those numbers and we still were finding things to complain about. And maybe this year, everything will start to come together where the defense and the offense, because you mentioned earlier, like, I wish, that the offense and defense could have been on the same page. And it's like, it's always one or the other with the Bears, right? And most of the time it's the defense looking at the offense like, will you guys do something? And maybe both units are going to ascend at the same time. That would be nice timing wise.
Yeah. We talk about Jay Cutler. I don't think people realize that talent wise, you can make an argument. And I know people say, what? Was one of the most talented arm and skill wise, like could sling the ball, one of the most talented arms the NFL has ever seen, right? Did he put it all together all the time? And did he have the leadership factor and did he have all these things? But when he slang that thing, right? And bro, he could throw that thing like no other. When he's on fire, and you look at Trestman when he was there, had an awesome season. When Adam Gase was there, unbelievable. But Jay Cutler, arm talent-wise, sometimes you're like, is that Aaron Rodgers? Like, sometimes when he's on, you're like, this guy should be a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Like, he is that talented. And I think when people talk about it, obviously his body language, they talk about leadership, they talk about this. But as far as pure talent, arm talent, I think he could, if things were maybe a little different, I think we can maybe talk about him as being one of the great quarterbacks in this league. And I don't think people give him enough credit for what he did because of a lot of other things, right? Did he care? Did he, like, people go back and forth all day about this, that, and the other. But man, could throw that in practice. You're seeing some of the throws, you're like, oh, that guy's on a different level.
Yep.
Right? It's honestly like if you put him on this team right now, I really believe he would throw for 400 yards a game.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because we had some mailbag questions here, and we did have one from Gary, and I want to try to find it, Steven, because this kind of brings us to this point. You had it on the first one. Sorry. I mean, it's Steven jumping over each other here, but you just said if you put Cutler on this team, and that was a question we had, and we're going to try to do some more mailbag questions from our diehards as the season is going, try to finish our shows this way, give some love to our diehards. I want to ask you questions as well, Corey. So Gary Ross in the chat is asking, what one teammate would you want to put on this 2024 Bears team to put them over the top?
I would say Julius Peppers. We need a pass rusher, right? Right side. Sweat plays the left. Julius Peppers will put them over the top right now.
Seriously, it would literally book your tickets and your flights and your hotels to New Orleans if Julius Peppers was opposite of Montez Sweat for this season.
Yeah. It would be unbelievable. But I honestly think just with the situation, right, the way Jay Cutler played towards the end of his time with the Bears with Trestman and then Gase, I mean, he did crazy numbers with not as much talent, right? I know Alshon was there and Brandon Marshall, but just think about the squad right now. Think about the scheme. Think about how the offensive line is set up right now in a much better situation than when he was there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think any quarterback, that's why I'm hoping, like with Caleb Williams, he hits the ground running. I think it's all key about how his first couple games are. When I look at young quarterbacks, and especially getting their confidence up, I look at how Jordan Love came out this past season, right? Came out hot, had a great first couple weeks, right? 4 or 5 weeks where he was really rocking, hit a little low, and then bounced back. But I think that initial confidence is what got him going, right? He had a great play caller that kind of was like, okay, after those first 5 games of success, we had a little lull. Man, I missed the mark here. They worked together, and then towards the end of the season into the playoffs, he looked like Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. So, I'm hoping that Caleb Williams starts the same way. They have a great game plan for him. They get him confident, rely on that run game, really take the pressure off him, which they do in a lot of Waldron sets, right, with the 2 tight ends, a lot of chip help. So I'm really hoping that he starts out this season, first game against the Titans, really getting his confidence up. And I think, honestly, if he has a great game, he doesn't have to throw for 400 yards, 300 yards. If he just has a very consistent game, he's efficient, he hits his throws, he doesn't turn the ball over, I think he will continue to stack games, and that will really get him confident because the first game, usually, especially with a young quarterback, look how Patrick Mahomes came out his first year. Guns blazing. I mean, was on fire. His first, what did he have, like, through the first 5 weeks? He had 20-something touchdowns. It was ridiculous. And I think he set himself up, and then once you get that confidence, it can't be stopped. And I think that's half the battle with the league, and especially young players, is how you go your first couple games to really get that confidence.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I can do this. Because I think everybody is confident in their ability, but you're going from college to playing with the big dogs at the NFL where they're grown men. They've seen every quarterback out there. So you're a great quarterback, but they've seen Aaron Rodgers that looks this way and then throws across the field blind. They've seen it all. So I think once you go out there and you prove like, hey, I can do this, all of a sudden you're like, all right, bet, let's do this. And that's what I'm hoping, that Caleb Williams has that moment where he's like, hey, there wasn't a doubt, but I just wanted to confirm that I got this.
I'm right there in the same headspace with you as far as starting fast. I mean, I'm already like having like the internal thoughts that I normally have, like leading up to the game, the week of the game, but it's the couple days after the 4th of July. And I'm already kind of like in game week mode of like how I agree with you, how crucial it is to me that the Bears win that first game, because I don't want week 2 at Houston to turn into like this feel like a must win type. I just want to walk into Houston. I think they can beat Houston, but I also think that's going to be a very tough game. So I have no expectations of what they can or should do that week. So I just want, as the meatball bag man of the show, I just want to be able to walk into that game with a 1-0 win in the Bears pocket. And then that game can be whatever it is. If they win, great, we're off and running. If they lose, you're at 500 and you're going to Indianapolis the next week at Indianapolis, because my fear is that if somehow Tennessee comes in and upsets the party week 1 with all the expectations, all the hype, and then all of a sudden the Titans come in there with no pressure. Nobody's expecting anything at Tennessee. And then they somehow sneak out of there with a win, and you're staring 0-2 down the barrel, or somehow you do start 0-2. That's going to just knock this whole team's confidence and the quarterback's confidence back a peg. Not to say they can't bounce back. It's still a long season. You got 17 games, you get an extra game. Like, they're not done. I'm not trying to like say that, but it's a momentum thing. It's a confidence thing. And there's so many early season games that you can identify and say they should win that one. And you don't have as many of those, I feel like, on the schedule at the end of the year. And a lot can change. There's a lot of context. Injuries happen. Sometimes the starting quarterback's out, so there's so much to play out. But at the end of the day, you have an opportunity week 1 to start out hot, get people's confidence under them. You don't have to blow them out of the water. You just got to come away with a win. You're going to have some things you can learn from, but you hope that they're learning in a winning form and not learning from a loss.
Exactly. That first game is very crucial because, like you said, Tennessee, everyone's expecting the Bears to win that game. Caleb Williams, this offense, if they go out there and they play lackluster and Caleb Williams doesn't do well in the game, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him going into week 2 against C.J. Stroud, the Houston Texans, who are arguably one of the fastest rising teams in the league. So I think that's huge to get the win week 1. Have Caleb Williams play pretty well, get his confidence up. So then week 2, it's not all this pressure, right? We're 0-1. We have to win this game, like you said. So that way it's
And the Colts aren't a pushover week 3, nor are the Rams. Like, as much as I think those are both very winnable games, Colts and Rams week 3 and 4, neither team is a pushover. No. So, like, it's just one of those things where, hey, they could start 3-1. They could be 1-3. We're going to find out soon enough, and it's exciting. Can't wait for it to get here. But, I think every fan, maybe the players go through this, but I just think every fan, this is like how they think. Like, they're just constantly obsessing of how each week's going to play out and the way the momentum's going to swing to see, how this is all going to shake down.
Yeah, I think the key with this offense is just protecting Caleb Williams. And I think, we can get into Justin Fields all day, but at times they did not protect Justin Fields. So I'm just hoping that with Caleb Williams, that they do everything they can to protect him, especially when he's younger, right? We don't want any of those games like the Browns game when he first came in, when Andy Dalton got hurt. Like, that's a no-no, right? That's a confidence killer for any young quarterback.
Yep.
And we talked about Blaine Gabbert, right, in his situation in Jacksonville and how they had not the best offensive line. He got hit and pressured and all this throughout the whole season. We want to protect Caleb Williams as a quarterback. Keep him upright. The chip help, 2 tight end sets, right? Chip help with the running backs, tight end chip and go out. Let's make things easier for the offensive line. Let's make things easier for Caleb Williams. Let's buy him an extra second. I think that's what Shane Waldron has shown to do. I think that's what he's done, especially dating back to Russell Wilson, right, when he had that great year before he left. What he's done with Geno Smith, and I'm hoping he just continues that trend with Caleb Williams.
Yep.
And I think that's key. All you want for your young quarterback is time, right? And how do you do that? Sometimes, yes, the line is blocking great, but you just give them an extra insurance. You give them that chip help, 2 tight end sets. You make the guys, the edge rushers, go wider. And especially when I'm looking at the second week, some talented guys, and Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, they're going to be ready to get after Caleb Williams. So I think it's crucial how they protect him this season.
No, 100%. As much as we talk about the skill guys, the meat and potatoes, the trenches, the offensive line, they have to be steady eddies, and I think they have guys that have the potential to be solid. Can any of them become great? I think Tevin Jenkins can be great if he can stay healthy. I think Darnell Wright can be great if he stays healthy. Last year he was dealing with a shoulder injury that he played through all season. But I think he's got a very high ceiling in this league. Braxton Jones, there's a lot of questions of can he take another step here, and be beyond just dependable as far as being out there week to week. So it'll be interesting. And, beyond just like chip help and protection help to make sure your quarterback's comfortable with all these options, that we've talked about in the wide receiver core and the tight ends and DeAndre Swift, that's an opportunity for Shane Waldron to create some easy throws for his quarterback to get the ball out of his hands and see exactly where he's going with the football, because you're forcing the defense to, slide coverages certain ways, putting them in tough situations. And now all of a sudden Caleb Williams can execute a pretty easy throw. So a lot riding on the line for Shane Waldron here this year to show that he's worth us bringing him and, a lot of the Seattle coaching staff and all these different offensive coaches over here justify those moves that they made. So excited for it all. We're going to talk about it all. Next week is essentially training camp week. Players report, all the way through the week. I know Friday is basically the last day for everybody to report. Next Saturday, the 19th is the first practice at Hallis Hall. So we've got some big things planned for next week. Some guests we have in mind that we might be bringing on. So just stay tuned for all of that. Excited to get to some football conversation. We've done a lot of hypothetical conversations like we're having here right now. It's fun to take a trip down memory lane the last few episodes with you, Woot, talking about some of the teams and players that made me the Bears fan that I am today. And I know a lot of the viewers as well appreciate some of those stories. We didn't get to all the mailbag questions, so we're going to save some of those and roll them over into next week. I promise. For all of you that tune in, we're going to start doing some more mailbag segments so you can get your questions into Corey as the season rolls along as well. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Thanks for hanging out with us for our second CHGO Bears show of the day. If you haven't watched our afternoon episode, make sure you give that a watch. And then tomorrow, Mark Carman returns from Wimbledon. He's been in London watching real players play tennis. So I'm sure he'll have many updates on that excursion and his scouting report of our trip to London that's coming up here in a few months. So make sure you tune in at 12 p.m. Central with Nick and Mark Carman. Thank you again to Corey Wootton for all the stories, all the knowledge, and all the good football conversation that we have here. So thank you to Stephen. Thank you to Stephen Nicholas. That means I'm being long-winded.
You get to the point where you're trying to thank me and you start choking.
I get all choked up. I get all choked up.
No, I see how it is. Thank you. Whoever.
Hey, Woot. Whatever that was a no Diddy move right there. All right. So I don't know what that was. About? No. Whatever with the choking thing there. All right. So you just relax.
What are you talking about, dude? Get your mind out the gutter, bro. This guy always. Yo,
this is After Dark.
Paris, bro. Get out of here, man.
All right. Well, I do. I get choked up when I think about my guy, Steven. But thank you. He's my guy. He's my brother in arms. He works. He's the hardest working dude I know. So I appreciate Steven. That's truth. That's truth, Woot. Yeah, I can't give my man some flowers here.
No, I can't. You said you get choked up, Diddy. Okay.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody hanging out once again. So we'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Make sure you hit the like button. Thanks for hanging out. And always, bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.